Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the collective. I am Salvador, and this is Robustom, public broadcasting service. Now, this is a signal wave, vaporwave, mostly signal wave album um, by experimental music maker guy Robustom. Now, this is a very peculiar album. Now, before I get into this, I do want to say the reason why I created this channel in the first place is because I listen to a lot of music, like a lot, like everything from, like Elton John to Metallica to Limp Bizkit to Dream Theater to Swans, everything. Like Katy Perry, Tupac, everything, all the stuff, Miles Davis, blah, 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 blah. So I have a lot to say about music, and I just like talking about it. And also, B, I feel like in my journey through listening to all this music, there's a lot of music that gets kind of buried underneath just the times. There's so much music being released, and with the internet age being what it is, so much of it gets so much of it gets buried beneath a lot of stuff, and especially because nowadays, the top selling stuff. I'm gonna turn this a bit. Yeah, top selling stuff on the on Billboard 100s and all that kind of stuff, right? They're not exact. They're not. That doesn't always mean music is good. And there's a lot of music I find that will be charting and just be horribly garbage. And it's not even like a taste thing. Like it just won't be good at all. Like very little effort or anything. And there's other people that really put a lot of effort and bleed their hearts out for their music, and it doesn't get anywhere. you know? And so I want to make this channel to make sure, A, those people get their flowers, and B, that some artists that maybe have been being forgotten, sure, are not forgotten. And they're not just a passing phase, you know what I mean? And I feel like with experimental music like this, that's kind of this is usually a good spot for this kind of stuff, because what this album tends to tackle, what this album tackles is the overall concept of mortality, which a lot of albums do. A lot of songs have done the concept of mortality, and how when you're young everything's better and sweeter and stuff, and then when you're older it's all bitter and all that kind of stuff. A lot of albums have done this, but I feel like for experimental music in and of itself, whether it be this, or even Swans to an extent, maybe Merzbow, Nurse with Wound, whatever, Vaporwave, they have a concept, and stuff like this, they're not concerned about chord progressions. They're not concerned about, is it gonna sound good if it's mixed traditionally well, all that kind of stuff. So you have these concepts and ideas distilled into their purest forms, and you get stuff like this. And yes, this concept has been tackled many times before by many artists, but in this unfiltered view, it's tackled a lot better. Because let's say if I'm making a song that's supposed to be very dreadful and horrifying and stuff like that, I'm not gonna want to rhyme. That doesn't really fit. That doesn't make sense. I'm not gonna worry about nice chord progressions. It doesn't work like that exactly. I mean, maybe if you do some kind of irony thing, make it sound good, but it's really bad, sure. But in general, if you want to make something that sounds, unsettling, you don't want to use standard things, or if you do, you use them to your advantage in certain ways. And what this album does, it does it really well. What Robustom tends to do on this album, which from I understand, after I finished it, there's a second album like this. It's not exactly like a sister album or a double album, from what I understand. It's just the same concept done again. Just the same thing. Kind of like a part two, kind of. But what he does in this album is really good. It opens up with the track "Funded in Part By." It's a nice opener, and it kind of sets the tone a little bit. Gets some spooky atmosphere, and then out of nowhere, the beat from Teletubbies drops in, and I've never heard that beat go so hard on a song that shouldn't go so hard. but that's just how it be. That it is what it is. It is what it is. Um, Anyways, I did not grow up with PBS. I grew up with Treehouse, so a lot of these references are lost on me. But basically, he's using, or she, or they, I don't even know who they are, but anonymous name on the internet. They're using a lot of samples from PBS shows like Arthur and Sesame Street and Dragon Tales, etc., 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 all that kind of stuff. And every single one of these songs either gets really distorted and cuts out, or it fades, or it gets a little choppy and kind of breaks down, etc., etc. None of the songs just end. And the second track, Black Void Pit, if I remember correctly, it's just a tone setter. I'm pretty sure it's the tone setter. No, I'm sorry. It's a sample being used. It's a sample being used in the song, and this and a couple other songs, what they tend to do is really cool. Is they take lyrics from the opening themes of some of these TV shows, and he uses lyrics what would be like how this song says, I can do anything, I can be anything, all kind of stuff. And other songs that say things such as like, everything is wondrous, and he takes these things and he flips it and he uses it almost in an ironic way where, it like, sure, like it's, I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain, lose my train of thought a bit, but, like when you're using that kind of language, like everything is, everything is wondrous, and I can be anything, go anywhere, friendship kind of stuff, and those samples are over top of these really distorted, almost creepy at times tracks, and it's really interesting, especially on the fourth track, Sesamo Blues, which comes right after Sunday Morning Railroad, which is a demented version, I guess, of the Thomas Tank Engine song. And I think another song, I couldn't tell if it was mashed up at all, I couldn't tell. But some parts are definitely the main theme, other parts, I couldn't tell you what it is. But, it's reversed, there's other sounds here and there, etc., etc. It's a good tone setter, I guess, it's alright. Sesamo Blues, I think, is the best track on here. I don't know if they actually did this or not, but, so it is a slowed down version of, I think, the Sesame Street theme, I think. Whatever it is, there's harmonicas in it, and it comes across, very bluesy, and with the context of the lyrics, I guess, kind of sad and depressing a little bit. And in the song, there is Big Bird, or maybe some impersonator, I don't know. I don't know if it's a real episode or not, but because Big Bird and other members of the show are talking about how, I guess, the guy who runs the store is dead. And Big Bird does not know what dead means. And they're trying to explain to him what that means. And then he gets real sad, and he's like, well, no, who's gonna, read me stories, and who's gonna run the store, and what am I gonna do, that kind of thing. And it's honestly a very, in a way, a very kind of profound statement that he's managed to cram in just like, 2-minute-ish song with just some sample work, and that's it. And that, transitions into the next track, which is Tall Concrete Corridors. And that song, again, similar samples, of the lyrics where he's taking, happier, more joyous lyrics and flipping them on their head, et cetera, et cetera. I forget exactly what's being said in here, but it kind of comes across a little uneasy. It's hard to explain. Just with how they're saying the original and the effect of that being slowed down, it comes across kind of uneasy. And also at the start, I don't know what show it is with the dog, but there is someone who is lost, and I feel like that's also I think touched on here and there, like on the first track, with the Teletubbies thing, funded in part by, or at the very end, it ends with them saying, where did the Teletubbies go? Where'd they go? And again, it's very, on its own, it means nothing. But in the context of the album, it, for some reason, hits kind of hard. it's really interesting, to say the least. And so right after Big Bird is talking about death, and he's lost. He doesn't know what to do anymore. You have the next track, like I said, tall concrete corridors, and there's this dog who's whimpering, and he's lost. And they're talking about it. It's just really really interesting. It's sad in a way. Hold on one second. Sorry, I had to check something real quick. Whoops, that's the wrong thing. So yeah, after goes to that part with the dog being lost, or at least probably in a narrative perspective, you being lost, the person who's looking back at all this childhood stuff that's way long gone, you have the band come in and start talking about how everything's wondrous and everything's glorious, and again, it's in an ironic way. It's kind of really really interestingly depressing in a way. The next track, A plus 96 inches. I don't know. There's a little dash before it, or apostrophe. A plus 96. It's a rendition of the Arthur theme, and on this one, they're doing the same thing, where they're recontextualizing the lyrics of the song, but not exactly in a way that makes sense. I mean, there's the first part where it's just looping the part where he says every day when I'm walking, and I can assume this can be a continuation of the last two tracks where he's lost, and he doesn't know where he's going, because even on the other track, Tall Concrete Corridors, they mentioned the streets, how he doesn't know what street he's on, and now he's lost. So maybe reference to that, but then I got to think of where is he going, and there isn't really an answer to that per se. Maybe, because on the next track, Greener Grass, you have them just repeating, it's almost time for Dragon Tales, blah 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 blah, and then as usual it gets kind of distorted, it fades out. So, and then, so I can assume it's lead up to something, and then you get to the track The Report of Now, which is a news story, and it's hard to hear. It's very quiet because it fades in, but someone in the White House has signed a peace treaty or something. I'm not sure what it is, but it's just really interesting, I guess. And the next track, Wealthy Man Ted, it's taken from a pawn shop-esque show, I can assume, or maybe some other show where they find old relics in storage rooms and et cetera, and see what they're worth. And there's a guy who I guess has a really rare patchwork or patch of something, and apparently it's worth a lot of stuff, and he's really happy over it. And this is where I get confused, because the whole point of the album till now is how right now in current times you are bitter and you're not doing good, and you're looking back on the past and being like, man, I wish I was young again when all this stuff was cool and all this, I have to think about stuff, all that kind of stuff. And so I get a bit confused, and so I don't really think Wealthy Man Ted fits on this album. The Report of Now, sure, I can kind of bend it a little bit, but overall I don't see Wealthy Man Ted being even just I mean, I don't exactly know what the album concept is. It seems pretty interpretational, as most experimental stuff is, but at the same time it seems pretty straightforward, and this track almost seems contradictory. And then you have Hollow Us, Hollow Earth, which is a really nice mood setter, not setter. It's a nice instrumental break, I guess. It's a nice atmosphere. It's a bit creepy, but kind of relaxing in a way. And then you have the really short penultimate track, The Way I Like You, Just How You Are, which is a Mr. Rogers sample, which basically tells you the same thing. He says, basically something along the lines of we've grown up together, and things might be hard, but I'll tell you what I've always told you, is I like you just how you are. And then it goes into the last track, Future Nostalgia, which kind of sounds like you are waking up from a dream, in a sense. And they say something at the very end. I can't make it out. I tried to listen to it over and over again. I couldn't make it out. It was too distorted. But like some other parts on this album, I feel like it's too distorted to the point where you can't hear it on purpose. You're not supposed to be able to make it out. It's like a distant memory, so to speak, and you might be struggling to figure it out and remember, but you just can't. I also feel like, coming from me, who, has been through a lot of garbage, and, is also a depressed adult, whoopee for me, yay, yay, yay. This is something that makes sense. If it is about being a bitter adult looking into the past at, your childhood nostalgia and, pining over it and just wishing you had that back, then yeah, this album does that perfectly. I didn't grow up with PBS, so I'm sure that if I did, a lot of these would hit way harder because nostalgia stuff. I feel like this plays off of that really heavily, which is something that I personally cannot relate to. So I feel like some of the album's impact is diminished, but I also find it really creepy. I remember I'm trying to listen to this album actually for like 3 years now, and when I first found it, I skipped somewhere in the middle, just to see what it sounded like, so I could listen to it later and have an idea of it. And I skipped to Sesamo Blues, and I remember being really unsettling for like a couple seconds. I didn't like it. I turned it off immediately, and then now it doesn't feel unsettling. Maybe it's just me, because again, I've been through a lot of stuff, especially recently. But yeah, this is a great album. This is really good. The concept that it tries to tackle, it nails it. It really does. I feel like there's a track or two that, while some flesh out the context a bit, I feel like they could have been done a bit better. And I feel like one or two, Me, Wolf, and Ted, could just be left off. And, I feel like it ends kind of strangely. But again, maybe if listening to the other album, the sister album, I guess, maybe it will make sense. Maybe that one's like a lighter take on this exact same thing, and this is like the dark one, like a yin and yang kind of thing, maybe, because that would make sense. That would make sense to some of the things at the end, like the conflict and context of Wolfie Man Ted and stuff. I just listened to this like an hour ago. I've not been able to stop. Feel like something's gonna pop out of me from the back. I keep looking at my webcam footage over here. I'm feeling 8, strong 8. This is a good 8. This is a good. I'm gonna go. I am uncomfortable. I should not have done this at night. All right. I'm gonna see you later. That does remind me really quickly. When I did do this, man, staring at this cover has not been good. I will say, something about it. When I listened to the album, I had like a 2-hour break because I did something else in the meantime, and I happened to find some AI vocal covers, and they actually were really good. So that really spiked my mood up really, really far. There is a nice one of Plankton from SpongeBob doing "Tools the Pot," and Miku doing "Breaks Up" by Limp Bizkit, and that really made my day. And now, not an hour later, my day's back to being ruined. I love it. This is, I guess, that's how fear works sometimes. Like while you're in the moment of it, it's not scary, and then after it's over, and you give it an hour, then the paranoia sets in, and then it's scary. So cool. Cool. So that's strong 8. That's it. I'm gonna go. See you later.